January, the best way to start a new year. I've decided to start this new year by making a few changes to how I spend my free time, and I've been very happy with them so far. I've committed myself to playing more single-player and co-op games, less multiplayer games, and documenting my journey on YouTube. In January, I finished 3 games. I'll be talking about them in a very subjective worst to best order. Without further ado, let's get started. First off, I played the original Assassin's Creed. You play as the assassin Altair in the simulation called the Animus, experienced by his modern-day descendant Desmond. This game, in my opinion, has a very strong beginning. After a brief introduction to the Animus, the game opens by giving you control of the master assassin you shall become, and then stripping everything away from you. Your high damage, defensive abilities, all gone. You have to earn them back by assassinating the 9 targets, 3 in each of 3 cities. Levels consist of performing investigations, such as pickpocketing, eavesdropping, and interrogating. Optionally, you can reveal the entire map with viewpoints and save the citizens being harassed by guards. After each assassination, you regain an ability and learn more about the story, about what's really going on. This fantastically partners with the story taking place outside of the simulation, which in my opinion is the more interesting story. A few times after finishing certain levels, you'll exit the Animus and experience a modern-day story. Your conversations there will reveal a broad story arc, eventually revealing why you were captured and forced to use the Animus. Now let's get into the gameplay. The first couple of levels are quite engaging. You're gaining your bearings, learning how the game works. At this point, the experience is novel. Each new idea is exciting. But later, just a few levels in, a problem arises. The game explores all of its crucial gameplay elements very early, and there aren't enough of them. By the 5th level, the game is repetitive and boring. The second half of the game, save the last level, which I'll get to later, isn't interesting in the slightest. The only engaging gameplay only requires concentration because it's frustrating. I'm talking about the stealth missions here. The rest is plain boring. I'll now introduce my scale I'll be using to showcase how much of the game I felt was fun. This is the FUB scale. F stands for fun. This is a rough estimate of how much of the game I thought was both interesting and fun, as a game should be most of the time. Only around 35%, 1/3 of the time, was I truly having fun in Assassin's Creed. The early and late stages of this game were fun to me. The other 2 letters represent different types of not having fun. The U stands for unfun. This is how often the game was frustrating and rage-inducing. Around 10% of Assassin's Creed fit this category. There were only a couple of stealth missions per level, and the earlier levels had none. But these missions suck. You have to assassinate 2 to 5 targets and return to where you got the mission, all without being seen. Normally, the only consequence for being spotted in this game is having to fight a few guards. No big deal. But if you're caught in the stealth missions, it's forfeit. Try again from the start. Eventually, you'll figure out a route to take out all your targets, kill them when nobody is nearby, and hope you don't randomly get spotted anyway. The last letter is B for boring. The remainder of this game, over half of it, is boring. Boring meaning I have to watch YouTube on the side just to get through it. Most parts of the levels in the middle of the game fall into this category, which is why it stands so high. I now want to talk about the final boss, which I won't say exactly who it is for spoiler reasons. This boss is more of a puzzle than a fight, which I was pleasantly surprised by, since the fights are boring. What you had to realize was performing certain actions, such as grabs and counters, anything that would normally stagger an enemy, leaving them open for a kill, would send you into an immediate disadvantage state. Instead, you had to rely on dodging and finding an opening to attack. After the final boss, the Animus story is resolved, but the other story outside of the Animus is left on a cliffhanger, persisting through multiple games. I don't know why, but this makes me excited to play the second game. Normally I'd find this obnoxious, but the last few hours being a pleasant break from the monotony of the rest of the game leaves me with a generally positive outlook on the game. I no longer regret my choice to finish it rather than dropping it. Sonic Adventure is a game released in 1999. That's why, as someone who was not alive to experience the advancement of technology in that period, I need to remind myself of this constantly while playing. I preface this whole section by saying we should all understand that Sonic Adventure made leaps and bounds for 3D gaming. It was extremely impressive for its time. This game is not the roller coaster of quality that Assassin's Creed is, so I don't have as many topics I want to discuss. That being, there aren't a lot of bad parts. That said, I certainly have some, minor nitpicks. First off, I love how each of the 6 featured characters have their own campaign and gimmick. Many of them are amazing with perfect levels of both contrast and similarity. But some just don't hit. Some of them just don't work. One of them has absolutely no reason to exist whatsoever. This is Big the Cat. What you just watched was the most interesting Big the Cat gameplay. You know, looking at this footage, I never liked the number 6 anyway. The character select screen would have looked perfectly fine as a pentagon. It would have the perfect cast of Team Sonic, Amy, and Robot Guy that nobody cares about, but we leave him alone because he's actually fun to play, unlike somebody. Big the Cat rants over. Every single other campaign was incredibly fun to play through. Each level, save a couple, was unique, interesting, and fun. Looking at you, Sonic Stage 9 Lost World. That was really the only stage in the game I found legitimately frustrating, which is why this game gets only a 20% unfun rating. Some glitches also bumped up this score, and it would have been a lot higher if Big the Cat's campaign was longer, that's for sure. I give this game a decent 50% fun rating. This encompasses the time I spent in the versatile and interesting action stages and subgames. This would be a good time to mention the culmination of the game, where you become Super Sonic to defeat a powerful foe. It's not the best final boss ever and is pretty easy, but it was still impossible not to enjoy it. The boring 30% comes from the adventure maps. I see what they were going for 25 years ago, trying to place levels inside a larger map to further the story. It was a good idea, but I didn't actually enjoy any of my time in these maps. I did the required tasks just waiting to reach the next level. There's not a captivating story that I need to explain either, it really only exists to connect the campaigns. I'm therefore going to end this section now by saying that I do recommend this game to all 3D Sonic fans who haven't played it yet. The game and level design will take you back to the roots of the series, just like my final game I'll be discussing in this video. Hades is my favorite game of all time. Its story, voice acting, ever-changing gameplay, I have never-ending praise. That's why this month I wanted to go to its roots, all the way back to the developer Supergiant Games' first game. Bastion is a hack-and-slash RPG in the isometric style and Supergiant's debut game. The calamity has occurred, and it's the player's job to build the Bastion, locate survivors, and find out what caused the calamity. It's no Hades, but it's a good start. Each level is short and sweet, and feels important to the arc of the game. You gain a new weapon almost every level, and unlock the ability to switch between them fairly early, so the gameplay is always fresh and exciting. As such, this game is very short. A first playthrough will take under 10 hours, which is why I was still having immense amounts of fun when I beat the game and decided to go for all the achievements, which involves playing a second run in score attack mode, among other objectives. This game mode unlocks after you have finished the game's main story, and requires you to rack up score by defeating enemies quickly while avoiding taking damage in each of the levels of the game. Replaying the levels adds nothing interesting to your experience, but they're all still fun. I'll be putting up a boring score of 10% for this game. Putting this so low because almost none of the boring parts are in the main story, but they still deserve to be talked about. The other boring thing this game has, in my opinion, are the Proving Grounds courses. These serve as tests using each weapon, and they're not required, but I never found many of them fun or rewarding. They are only required for one of the achievements, which needs you to upgrade all the weapons to the max, since they reward you with upgrade parts, but a player might also choose to do these in a main playthrough if they want stronger weapons. However, not more than 20% of the required million score attack points will come from the levels. They come from the most challenging sequences in the game, which I believe every player should give a shot. See, Bastion has these things called shrine idols, which serve as difficulty modifiers. Equipping all 10 of these makes the game much more dangerous than ever before. Combine this with the who knows where segments, you better make sure you have the right buffs and weapons equipped. The who knows where segments give you the backstories of the 4 characters in the game, while having you quickly defeat waves of enemies, perfect for getting those multipliers up. Shrine idols also increase the score you receive. so if you used all of them, you're sure to get a high score if you play well enough. These sections certainly were rage-inducing at points, but not too often, so here's a 10% unfun rating, which is not bad at all. Losing can be very upsetting while going through these challenges, but it's always possible to identify what you as a player did wrong. Should you have attacked more, defended more, healed more? Hindsight is 20/20, so you try again, and boy is it satisfying. I believe 80% of an average playthrough of Bastion will be spent undeniably having fun. Play this game, it's like $3 on sale. Thanks for watching my first game review video. Subscribe with notifications to be the first to know when next month's video releases, as well as other content I post.